Just the other day, I was sitting at the office with one of these poor children who had been affected by the fires. And the entire time he was sobbing and crying because everything he knew, for the most part, was gone. Even though he was blessed to have his home, he had lost his school. All of his friends were displaced, and his world had been flipped upside down. And he was one of the lucky ones because there are thousands upon thousands of families who weren't so lucky, where they lost everything. And some of them didn't even have time to take their belongings. And despite my background and training, I honestly froze. I honestly froze and did not know what to say because I was so overwhelmed by the upset that he was experiencing and the sadness that I was experiencing for him. So I thought the best thing I could do is bring in an expert. And I want to introduce my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Lori Baudino, who's one of the smartest and most kind and considerate child therapists that I know, to really help us understand how do we help children navigate this awful trauma of sudden loss that's so unimaginable and so terrifying and so scary. So, Dr. Baldino, what I would love for you to guide us. How do parents talk to their kids, even if they haven't been directly affected? Like, how do we help these children navigate this awful loss and trauma that's happening before our eyes?
Well, thank you for speaking with me. I think it's these kind of moments that bring us together as individuals, as colleagues, and it's so important to reach out. So first and foremost, you're asking the right questions, right? When we want to know what do we do, and that we don't have to have all the answers. I really admire you saying that. Someone that I also respect so greatly in this work. And if you're watching this, I think you saw me. I took a breath. And I had to. When you started talking, my whole body tensed up. I felt my heart get heavy. I felt my eyes fill with water. I felt my hands started to shake. I had this visceral experience of everything you were saying, and I saw the images flash before my eyes because, like so many, we're watching this on the news or we're actually experiencing it. We can see it outside our window. We can see it as we were driving, right? And my voice gets shaky again. And so I start by calling attention to our body. And I know you know this about me, but I always start there because that's enough. That's a beginning place, but it's also enough to just be able to sit in the body in this space and to know that what is experienced, what's happening is real, right? It's not some anxiety that's a what if this happens. This is happening. This has happened. And so there's a sense of reality here, that your child and you are supposed to have these emotions. Your child is allowed to cry, is allowed to ask questions, is allowed to feel fear and scared, is allowed to curl up next to you and want a hug, is allowed to show their doctor that they want to cry and that they're scared. These are so important, and we don't have to actually stop that yet, because I wasn't in your office when that happened, but giving that child a space was allowing them to have a release. And then we have this natural way of recovering where our body knows what to do to kind of move through and process these events. So then we get to express with our parents about how we can narrate back to the child what we are hearing them say. And also just to recognize, and whether it's this trauma or just a daily life event, those of you that know my work will hear me say quite similar things, because this is just really the crux of all of it, is just being able to say to the child, I see that you're sitting there and I see tears in your eyes. I see your shoulders slump down. Allow them to step into their body, and their body will naturally start to breathe. It will relax, it will slow down, and it will recover. And to me, that is the most critical space we can give our children. And then there's some more, right? We can step into the space of what is the reality in the here and now. So we're not going to expose them to ongoing media and have them watch things over and over again. You probably could read that in any article online, right? Media is really helpful. It's giving us what's going on. We're looking at it for updates, but we don't want to be watching the same newscast over and over again, having them recall these images. But we do want to allow the children to express images and ideas in their own ways. So this is an opportunity to explore in drawing, in movement, in storytelling, in sharing around a table. And I know even as I'm saying this, Dr. K, I'm thinking, oh, there's families that don't have a table right now. They're together with other people, maybe sharing a home, maybe sharing a, a, a place of relocation. But the thing is that they aren't alone in this. And I think that's really important that we can look at each other and even just holding hands and breathing or playing some music. Again, sometimes I think this stuff feels so simple. Like people are gonna be like, oh, great, she says to sing a song and move or play a game, but they're everything for these kids. They need to know that in the reality, in the here and now, there are choices that they have and that they're not alone.
I appreciate that. And I mean, just walking through this as you're talking about it has definitely changed my own state.
Mm.
And I think if I had this tool while that was happening with him, I probably could have been more present rather than being drawn into my own sadness. How
Yeah.
would you guide families in terms of having discussions around safety, around loss? Because I'm sure some of these children are in a place where they're like, well, if this is happening, what's next? And what is next? And what is going to happen to us? And where am I going to live? Where am I going to go to school? Do you have any guidance on how families should have these conversations, which I'm sure will come up around these awful conversations that need to be had?
Yeah, I think even just your saying of like that awareness of what you could do for yourself as the listener is so important that as you're going through this as a parent, you're going to have these internal feelings of feeling overwhelmed. And so sometimes that reactivity comes out when our children are asking questions because we just want to let them know we've got it under control. Sometimes that control comes out as reactivity or stress. It's okay to be human. I guess I would say first and foremost, to be authentic is always going to be better than to pretend or think our children aren't aware of how we really feel. So I would give permission to parents to be able to have tears, to be able to say, I don't know all the answers, but I do know this. I do know that I'm going to be with you. I do know that we're going to have a plan and it's starting right now where we're in this location. Where are you? What's the place? Who are they with? And then the littlest moment, right? The plan is like, we're about to eat something together, or we're going to read this book together, or I'm going to tell you a story about where I grew up if you don't have an actual book. So it's what's happening right now. And then it's what if this happens next? What's next? And then we might ask the child, would you like to be a part of that planning with me? Can we share and collaborate together to let them know that we're going to let you in on this process, that we need you just like you need us. I feel like children are so capable and competent, and when they are a part of the planning and they're a part of the relationship they're engaged in, it becomes so meaningful. And there's a sense of trust. Now, we're not giving them all the power. We're not telling them like, what do you think we should do next? But certainly giving them a space to know like you are a part of this dialogue, and I'm here with you, and we're going to talk about it together. So every time I find out some more information, I'm going to let you know how that looks. But first and foremost, right now, we're here in this space. You're with mom, you're with dad, you're with care provider, you're with your sibling, maybe you're with your pet, maybe you're with an extended friend or family member or some new people that you've just met in your community. You can also let them know who is around them that they could have to access for support. So they may have their doctors that they could reach out to, psychologists. They might have their teachers. I got a beautiful message from a teacher this morning saying, let me know if you need anything. I'm happy to send puzzles and funny riddles, right? So just there is a community. So letting the child know, hey, did you know that you have all these resources? That's also really important. So I
So,
know there's a lot of nuance about like how do we address all the questions, but I think you're probably hearing me that like it's about slowing down and kind of giving them one step at a time without saying don't talk like that or don't think like that.
so it's more really how do we create the space
Mhm.
for them to share their emotions, to share their concerns, to just essentially open up and release that energy and trauma that's there, much more than having all the right answers right now and what's going to happen and so forth.
Absolutely. And there is so much resources out there. So I know that there are multiple ways to address these dynamics, and it is very nuanced between you and your child and your family dynamic. You certainly need to take care of yourself as the adult. So really knowing like, okay, there's a space for your emotions and who's holding them for you, but also how can you model for your child that you're with them and that you're also understanding what this experience feels like. It is this is just devastating for everybody. And I also, believe in this kind of bigger human spirit that we'll get through this and we're all together. We're not alone. And I'm really hoping that families know that they can reach out for support.
And and ultimately, without saying it, helping the children start feeling safe where they are, right? So despite the loss, despite the trauma, creating an environment, creating an opening where it's essentially being said like you're safe, you're supported, we are supported, we are here, we are okay, and we will get through this. And look at all the people that are going to help us get through this.
Absolutely. And even that word safe, right? It's like so, it can be so abstract if you have this fear of what could happen. And so, really sticking to what is like, we are in this room, the room is blue. Really think I smell someone's perfume or I'm tasting what, right? Or I have this warm, cozy sweater on that I made sure that I had, or you can feel mommy's hair. Really tapping into the sensory system is a really true and reality-based sense of safety. We also have safety in I kind of I name them in five waves. Safety is like water and food. If you have some type of connection to that. Um, Safety is your environment. So whether it's changing lights or using a blanket or creating a space within a small space, knowing it's yours, making sure the child knows what space is theirs, even if it's tiny, even if it's just the space around their body, even if they can trace their body and say like, I know where my hand is, I know where my body starts and stops. And then it's also connection to somebody. When we're with another person, we can get through way more than we can alone.
I love that.
Right. So, and I was just thinking as I said that, I had this like kind of flash in my mind about the body, and these kids need to move. I kind of laugh as I say that because, again, I'm like, people are thinking this is so simple. But when trauma happens, we go inside, especially with the air quality, we shut down, we lock ourselves in, right? We try to like kind of recover and stay close. That's great because our body's getting input. Like if you're leaning up against someone. But if your child's sitting there for more than a day, 2 days, 3 days, it's going to feel really long. So the littlest movement, I always think like on the airplane, people think you can't move, but absolutely you can. You can press hands together. You can press your joints. You can jump up and down. You can tense and release muscles. These are all kind of meditation activities that we may have known about all along. This is the time to really think about, am I getting my child moving? Can you row your boat, even with a teenager? Can you do activities to get them moving because that's going to really support the nervous system to know that they're safe.
I love that. I love that. So it's not so much about the conversation you have and what you say. It's really just creating that space for them to feel grounded, to feel present, and to feel that you're present with them is really what I'm hearing is the most important thing we can do for these children right now.
Yeah, I think again, yes, right now, the narrative, the dialogue, the storytelling of this event, this kind of historic moment in those children's lives and all of our lives will be said. All the words are going to be said eventually. But we need to make sure that the brain is ready to hear them and receive them and that it's productive. So let's get our children to feel really connected and supported first.
I love that. And I think another thing that I heard indirectly you say is for us to be very mindful ourselves, to
Mhm.
not allow our own fears to project into this dynamic in our interactions, because the more fear we hold and the less present we are and the less able we are to connect with them, the less able we are to help them move through this awful scenario.
Absolutely. Yeah. And timing is such a a critical component to this. Some of us can do it quite quickly. We have that creativity hat and we're like, oh, this worry's happening. How can I create an opportunity out of this or an experience out of it? Like now we're on an adventure. Sometimes that comes easy for some people, and others are feeling like, no, I'm in it and I'm bogged down and this is where I am. And so, be kind to yourselves as you're hearing this and know that it's a moment in time and it's a significant moment in time. And that then you might move into the next space of supporting yourself.
I love that.
Mhm.
And I think at the end of the day, really the the point that I would love to, drive, and I think that this was a, conversation we had before, is you guys are not out there alone.
Mhm.
Uh, we're all in it together,
Yeah.
and this is a community, and we need to support each other, and we need to love one another, and really just for those poor families who have been affected and traumatized, for everyone to come together to really just give them the love and warmth and support they need, and to feel to help them, and especially these poor kids move through this awful moment of loss and trauma, and have that trauma and loss not stick so they can move through.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. We learn a lot about ourselves during these critical moments, and we don't wish it upon anybody, right? We don't want this to be happening. We don't wish it upon anyone. And it is quite fascinating. And we're both here in Los Angeles, and I know that you and I can attest to this world of we live a quite busy life here in Los Angeles. We're always moving around, lots of busy schedules, lots of different locations, and we can also feel isolated in how busy we are moving about. And then there's these moments that happen, these crises that happen. All of a sudden, we're drawn together. We have to
Yeah.
slow down. We have to get inside. We have to be together, and we have to help each other. We have to connect. I've gotten more messages this week from people all over the world asking how everyone's doing, reaching out. And I know we're in their hearts every day, whether they reach out or not, but it's incredible to focus in on that and realize, wow, people are really thinking of you.
Yeah.
And we might not know your name, but we're thinking of you.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, like, we're lucky where we weren't even affected, but so much love has poured in, and so many friends and people, some of whom I hadn't talked to in 5 years, 10 years, have just reached out, to just give their love and support. And, the one thing that I want to say is you are all supported. You are all loved. You will be okay. All of this will ultimately work itself out. And tap into your community and tap into the love and connection that's there to help you move through it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And within yourselves, between you and your children, and your loved ones, you have everything you need within your own selves, right? That idea of losing everything. If you're here listening to this, you still have yourself, you still have your family, you have so much. Yeah,
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to have this important conversation and to share all this wisdom. And honestly speaking, just in you sharing all of this and me working through exactly what you said, like, my energy has shifted just through this conversation.
I'm so glad. I continue to be of support. I know I've been posting that I want to be a resource to families during this time, free of charge. That's not the goal. Is not about having full sessions or any ulterior motives other than just to be there. Again, these are questions that we should all be able to answer and support for one another. So we keep saying it, but the resources are here. So please reach out.
Yeah, I as well. Let's pray for everyone to be safe during this awful time, and to heal and be able to move on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking with me too. It means the world to me.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
have you. All right. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
Me too.
Stay safe.